Greetings pioneers! Today we will be discussing a variety of useful tools and techniques available to you in the Fixit Incorporated Standard Manufacturing and Design Package. This video will focus on the basics of using your user interface effectively. If you are already an experienced pioneer, this video may or may not be helpful to you. But if you are a recently landed pioneer recruit, this video will likely show you several useful tools that you were not aware of. To avoid confusion, I will keep my usual SAS and corpo speech to a minimum for the duration of this video. Note, many key bindings can be changed in your settings, so this video will assume you are using exclusively default key bindings. Also note, this video also assumes you have the one-click build setting enabled in the controls section of your settings. If you have this setting disabled, anytime a mouse button must be held, you will be permitted to click multiple times to incrementally advance through the described activities. To begin, you may press Q to open your Buildables interface. This can be used to select any of a variety of objects, buildings, or vehicles to construct. When you have selected an item, simply aim your build gun at the desired location and use your left mouse button to place the object. If the object you chose belongs to a subcategory of objects, you may press E to cycle between any of the items in the subcategory. Alternatively, you may hold E to open a wheel interface of all the subcategory options. To select one, move your cursor to the desired object and release the E button. Most buildables will also have multiple available build modes which will change the style of placement. We will go into more detail about build modes shortly. If you wish to dismantle a single object, you can press the F key to enable dismantle mode. You may either highlight a single object at a time and/or you may press Ctrl to select up to 50 objects simultaneously. When you have finished your selection, hold the left mouse button to dismantle those objects. The resources used to make them will be 100% refunded to you and placed in your inventory. If your inventory is full, then a Fixit Incorporated dismantle crate will be created at the location of the most recently selected object and it will store the excess materials until you collect them. If you wish to dismantle an entire blueprint at once, you may press the R key while in dismantle mode to switch between default and blueprint dismantle modes. While in blueprint dismantle mode, you will be able to dismantle the entire contents of a single blueprint with a single selection. Note, you cannot use Ctrl to select multiple blueprints for dismantling. Also note, while in blueprint dismantle mode, you will not be able to select objects that are not part of a blueprint. You will need to revert back to the default dismantle mode to dismantle non-blueprint objects again. If you have not unlocked blueprints yet, do not be afraid. The Mark I blueprint will become available to you when you complete the Tier 4 Fixit Blueprints milestone in your hub. In either dismantle mode, you may press the G key while aiming at a specific object or blueprint to filter your selections. Any object or blueprint will select for the remainder of that dismantle selection will only be that filtered type. If you need to build more of a nearby structure, you can select that object by aiming at it and clicking your mouse wheel. You may then place that object per the normal methods. If you switch to blueprint dismantle mode, you may click the scroll wheel button to select a blueprint to place as well. While building objects, most objects have multiple builds modes that you can cycle through by pressing the R key or by holding the R key to open a wheel of options. Blueprints alternate between default and blueprint placement modes. The default option will place your blueprint using the same placement rules as normal objects like foundations. The blueprint placement option will cause your blueprint to snap into position adjacent to other blueprints whenever possible. When placing belts, you have either the default or straight placement options. The default placement option will attempt to build a belt in a straight line from the starting location to the designated end location. You may also rotate the endpoint direction by scrolling your mouse wheel. The straight placement option will cause the placed belt to use exclusively 90-degree turns to reach the designated location. It will always make the turn at the closest available space to the end of the newly placed belt. If there is insufficiently space to create a 90-degree turn, it may substitute a 45-degree turn instead but will only do this as a last resort. The following statements are true for both the default and the straight placement options. Any turns will follow a 2-meter radius curve. Whenever you would place a belt without being attached to a snapping point, it will automatically create a standard conveyor pole. When creating a conveyor pole, you may hold the mouse button down and aim up or down to change the height of the pole. The conveyor pole can be made to be 1, 3, 5, or 7 meters tall. Any newly placed belt can be up to 56 meters long. Related to belts, you can also build conveyor lifts. These serve the same function as belts but move exclusively vertically. They have default and reversed build modes. These modes are only relevant when building a conveyor lift that is not attached to another belt, lift, machine input, or machine output. When using the default build mode, the conveyor lift will use the first chosen location as the input. When using the reversed build mode, the conveyor lift will use the first chosen location as the output. When you attach a lift to an existing directional connection, such as a belt or machine, it will automatically choose an input-output direction that is compatible with the connected object regardless of which build mode you use. When placing pipes, the pipeline supports have the same functionality as the conveyor poles. But after selecting a pole height, you may also scroll your mouse wheel to adjust the angle of the pipeline connection. Pipelines have 4 build modes that can be selected: Auto, Auto 2D, Noodle, and Horizontal to Vertical. The Auto build mode will automatically choose one of the other 3 build modes based on the shape of your pipe, most often using Auto 2D and Horizontal to Vertical. Auto 2D will only allow the pipelines to be built on a perfectly flat horizontal plane. It will attempt to keep the pipe as straight as possible and follow 2-meter turn radii, much like the default belt placement mode. The horizontal to vertical build mode will function much like the Auto 2D mode but will allow for vertical placement as well. It will attempt to stay on the plane of the starting location for as long as possible before using 90-degree turns to reach the final location. The Noodle build mode will follow a smooth spline curve from the start to end location. All of the previously provided information about pipelines and pipeline supports also applies to hypertubes. Next, all types of foundations, walls, and a variety of architectural objects have both default and Zoop build modes. The default build mode will place a single object at a time. The Zoop mode will allow you to click and drag your build gun to place up to 10 adjacent identical objects in the designated direction. Standard foundations can only be placed horizontally adjacent to each other using the Zoop build mode, so they have an additional vertical build mode which will allow for vertical Zoop placement of standard square foundations. Production buildings and most other interactable objects do not have build modes. However, you can hold the control key to cause the placement hologram to automatically snap into alignment with other nearby structures. When building metal beams or painted beams, you have 3 build modes: default, diagonal, or freeform. The default build mode will force the beam to be built along one of the 3 standard Euclidean axes. The diagonal build mode will allow the beam to be built on any angle that is flat on one of the 3 standard Euclidean planes. And the freeform build mode will allow the beam to be built on a straight line between any 2 points in the world. Note: any single beam can only be a maximum of 40 meters long, but any 2 points, regardless of distance, may be used to determine the alignment of the beam. If the 2 designated locations are greater than 40 meters apart, the beam will simply extend 40 meters from the starting point aimed at the second location. This will be very helpful for advanced building techniques that will be discussed at another time. When building nearly any object, you may press the H key to lock the hologram in place before building it. This will allow you to move around and inspect the placement of the object, or blueprint, before clicking to place it. While locked in this manner, you may use your arrow keys to nudge the hologram up to 8 meters in any horizontal direction. Holding the control key will allow you to nudge the hologram in 0.5 meter increments. You cannot nudge vertically with the Fixit Incorporated standard manufacturing and design package, but there are supplementary packages that expand upon this functionality, and we will discuss those tools another time. If you wish to build a specific quantity of an object or blueprint, you may click the plus sign in the upper right corner of the object button to add it to your to-do list. This to-do list will automatically track the total quantity of each resource needed to build all objects in the list and will automatically count down the remaining quantity to build whenever you place an object of the designated type. You may add 10 of an item to the to-do list per click by holding the Shift button when you click the plus button. During any of these activities, your hologram will change color depending on the circumstances. Blue is the default color for a hologram ready to be placed that has no overlapping components with other objects. Orange is the default color for any object or blueprint that has been selected for dismantle. Red is the default color for an object that cannot be placed due to overlapping hard clearance spaces. Yellow is the default color for an object that can be placed but may have some overlapping objects. If you dislike the colors used when building or dismantling, you can change any of the 4 described colors in the user interface section of your options. Speaking of colors, you may easily access your color customizer by pressing the X key. These various swatches can be used to color you objects or to give them a metallic finish. By right-clicking a switch, you may choose objects to be automatically affected by the swatch whenever you build new objects. Checking these boxes will not affect objects already placed in your world. But changing the details of any of the swatches will impact all objects given those swatches regardless of when you placed them. Although it may take time for those changes to be reflected in existing structures. Regarding your hotbar, you may assign any object, customizer option, or blueprint to your hotbar by holding your cursor over the desired object and pressing the number key you wish to assign it to. You also have 10 hotbars with which you can assign these shortcuts to. You can cycle between hotbars by holding the Alt key and scrolling your mouse wheel. Patterns, which can be unlocked in the Awesome Shop, may be placed on most types of foundations such as the standard squares, ramps, corner ramps, or inverted ramps. However, they cannot be placed on quarter pipe foundations, foundation stairs, nor half foundations. The orientation of the pattern can be rotated by scrolling your mouse wheel. The color of the pattern will be determined by the secondary color of the assigned swatch. This concludes the tutorial on basic user tools and building techniques. Thank you for watching and remember, be effective, be efficient.